Oh my God, it's that time of year again. Wintertime is getting so cold, and that's why I'm gonna give you 5 different tips on how to handle winter driving as a truck driver, especially as a brand new driver itself. Now, as we're getting into this winter season, things are gonna start shifting and moving, especially for drivers. Whether you're driving a car or a truck, it's gonna be similar tasks that you have to worry about. Now, the thing that you do have to understand is that trucks take a whole lot longer to stop, even in perfect conditions. So when you're adding the snow, the rain, the freezing, the black ice out there, all these things make it a little bit more difficult and a little bit more challenging for this career. As it's snowing behind me right over here, the first thing I have on my list is going to be vehicle preparedness, right? Depending on how bad the conditions are going to be, depends on what you have to do for your vehicles. There's a few things you should be checking on your vehicle regularly, and especially in the wintertime. At the end of the day, one of the things that you want to make sure that you're doing every single time, especially in the wintertime, is going to be something called draining your air tanks. And pretty much what this means is you're going to be opening up the air valves and making sure that all the air and all the moisture that's built up throughout the day is actually drained out. Because if you actually do not do this, at the end of the day, when you shut off the truck, that moisture, which is now water, is going to turn into ice, and it's going to start clogging up all your air lines, which means that your brakes are going to be locked up and you cannot keep moving forward. When it comes to things like that, you want to make sure you're adding extra supplies to your supply list, which is going to be like alcohol evaporators, right? So these are different liquids that you can put down your air lines to make sure you're evaporating any of the ice or any of the water buildup, especially when it gets super cold. The other thing that you want to make sure that you're checking when it is super cold is going to be tire pressure, because when it gets cold outside, your tire pressure is going to start to decrease. It does not mean that you have to fill it up all the time, because all of a sudden when the actual temperature starts to normalize again, the tire pressure can be too big, which means you can potentially have a flat. So you want to make sure that you're draining your air tanks and you have the right amount of tire pressure, and you're always making sure you're checking that on a daily basis. The next thing we're going to be talking about is safe driving techniques. When it comes to the CDL driver's manual, it tells you should be reducing your speed by at least half when it is snowing outside. Now, in perfect conditions, the thing you have to understand is it takes a truck about 300 feet to come to a complete stop. That's the size of this football field right over here. Think about that. Now, when you add some snow, when you add some slush, when you add some ice in the streets, that 300 feet can get a lot bigger and a lot more dangerous, especially if you're going at higher speeds. So we want to make sure we're reducing our speed by at least half, so then we're able to make sure that our stopping distance is under control. The other thing is we want to make sure that we're always checking in front of us, because if we're looking ahead of us, our reaction time is going to be able to be handled, so it's going to avoid any distractions out there. Also, when it comes to driving up hills or mountains or anything like that, make sure you have proper chains on your tires if necessary. The next tip we're going to be talking about is going to be monitoring the weather. Now, I'm not talking about this weather guy right over here who's always getting everything wrong all the time. You want to monitor it. Doesn't mean you have to obsess over it, because like you know, like I know, the apps, the weather people, they are wrong a lot of the time. So you don't want to make sure you're planning everything around it. You want to have some contingency plans. But all of a sudden, if all of a sudden you find out that this whole storm is coming in this direction, maybe you're going to take a different route to go around that storm, right? Maybe all of a sudden you're going to start planning, okay, if I drive these many hours before the snow starts hitting, then it means I'll be sleeping when the snow does hit. So all of these can be into effect when you're actually monitoring the weather around you, so you can actually make plans to get you from point A to point B in as smooth and as safe as possible. Remember, no load, no amount of money is worth taking the risk and making sure that you die or somebody else around you dies, which is probably even worse. So you want to make sure that you are monitoring things and you're not just being willy-nilly about it. Tip number 4. Emergency preparedness. So how do you actually prepare yourself in case of emergencies? Now, you do have to understand things are going to get really cold out there, which means if all of a sudden you're shut down, you want to make sure that you are using something that can actually keep you warm. Something as simple as hand warmers, nice cloaks, maybe a blanket or so, something like that. You have that extra bag out there, because worst case scenario, you don't want to be stranded out there with no power, no heat in your truck or anything like that. So you want to make sure that you have enough clothing in there for your emergency preparedness kit. That's something that a lot of people don't even think about. The final tip, tip number 5, is going to be how do you handle communication and support. So when the weather actually gets bad out there, you have to communicate even more. Anytime that things get more difficult, the more communication, the better it's going to happen. So when you are communicating, make sure you're communicating with your dispatcher, because all of a sudden if snow starts to hit or if you got a heavy rainstorm or a very icky condition and it's going to delay your trip, you want to make sure that the customer is being aware and making sure that the broker or the dispatcher that you're communicating with understands how the situations are going. Remember, you are in control of your safety, which means if you feel it's safe enough to actually keep driving, you can keep driving. If you feel it's unsafe, then it's your responsibility to pull over and communicate with everybody and making sure you get the proper support out there, which means listen to your CB radios, listen to the communication for other drivers on how the road conditions are all over the country depending on what route you're going into. There's a whole network of drivers, and one of the cool things about getting a CDL license is you become part of the family itself of drivers, and everyone's here to help each other out because we all know we're all on the chase to get on our road to freedom, and the way we do it is by helping people just like you get themselves a CDL license, whether it's wintertime, summertime, or spring. We can definitely guide you through this process. So I hope this helped you out and making sure that you're ready to rock and roll for this winter season and become a safe driver out there and keep our roads even safer as well. Thanks, and I'll see you next time. Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like it, make sure you hit that like button. Also, subscribe to our channel. It's really going to help us out. Click on that button. And if you want to continue yourself on your road to freedom, here's more videos to watch. There's endless amounts. Hopefully we get to see each other one day very soon. Thanks.